going to show you where you can actually find the recordings of our webinar. So I know a lot of people, a lot of our students from the school, they tend to actually view the recording afterwards. So let me just quickly point you into the right direction. Okay, so that's our webpage. Just in case, if you don't know me, my name is Holger Putin. I'm the director of London Institute of Photography. We are a photography institute based in East London, and we are a relatively new institution. We were founded in 2016 and have grown very quickly since then. And those talks, those LIOP talks, are actually part of our professional photography course. And the idea is that we expose our students to industry professionals, to the leading players of the photography industry. And over the years, we have interviewed some really amazing artists, but not just artists, but sometimes we've got like curators or agents coming in. We sometimes have food stylists coming in, whoever we think is interesting to talk to for our students. And I really quickly want to show you where you can find all those recordings. If you go to our webpage, liop.co.uk, and then you go to the event section, and down here you can find those talks. You can see here this talk here is already, the system automatically places this into previous talks. And for example, we had Laura Lewis coming in last time. We had Naomi, we had Costas before that. We had a friend of mine, Tim Barber, a lifestyle photographer. You just simply click on one of those links and then you can find those recordings. They're still for free. It's we're restructuring the course or the school at the moment, so enjoy them once they're available for everybody to see. So I'm going to pass this over now to you, Angel. So we just we have a common friend, Debbie Castro, which is one of our staff, and yeah, it's really it's an honor for me to have you here on this course. Debbie told me over the years lots about you and about PhotoIreland, and yeah, I'm really interested and really excited to hear a bit about the background story. So I'm going to hand this over now to you. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you. I mean, thanks for inviting me to join you this Friday, and thanks to those that join us live and those that will watch it later. I just want to, I suppose, to give you a sense of how do we arrive to PhotoIreland as it is today, and I'm trying to make it quick and informative, and of course, you can share some questions along the way. So my name is Ángel Luis González Fernández. I am from Madrid, from Spain. And the story starts when I was studying journalism in Spain, and I could not continue progressing this career because it was incredibly boring to deal with mostly politics in Spain. So I started some sort of fanzines and trying to get out of that situation of inactivity and unemployment. Ireland was really good at that moment, economic-wise. 98. So I arrived to Dublin and I developed my skills in the novel art of cleaning dishes. I think this was a job that really invited me to or urged me to start my own business. So I started to study a number of courses in through the unemployment office and others, and then started my own agency called Cuomo in 2001. And I've been working, as a designer since then. But essentially, I was doing all sort of, design jobs for private clients. And after a while, I started to have this desire to study photography, and I did do a BA in photography. And after all this kind of like 8 years in Dublin, through this progression, I felt like, okay, so what now? Because I have this degree, but in Ireland there is some challenges to progress with your career. You have the VA programs. But despite those programs and despite the support of the system network, there was a Source magazine from Northern Ireland, Peggy Raymondson, curator based in Cork at the time, the Gallery of Photography in Dublin. There was still an understanding of photography as a camera club. So it meant that it was hard to exhibit. It meant that there was an isolation, perhaps, or maybe that was the cause of, having a weak network. And then there was a need for more voices around photography, because we had Source and the Gallery of Photography, but that's all. It became sort of like a monopoly, something that had a unique voice, when photography is nothing but plural, So there was also a lack of master's program. So, what do you do? I put myself like, I had two options. Either I migrate or I try to change the situation. I had a very careful consideration process, and I decided to start a festival in Ireland. This was something that it was an idea that was in my head for quite a long time, and I spoke with a number of people, and I kind of started to work on this idea. But at the time, I actually sold everything, and I moved to Zurich. So maybe that was kind of like my crossroads. I went there to meet the devil or something. I don't know. But I moved to Zurich, and from there I was kind of like making my phone calls and meeting, flying to Dublin actually almost every week. Meeting everybody from the director of the Irish Museum of Modern Art to the minister to everybody that was involved in the arts. And I was going around with 2 A4 papers, like I'm feeling a little bit like this, trying to explain my story about, no, I really want to make a festival. I want you to support it. Want to find out, what, how does it has to happen? How do we shape it? Who can support it? And in Zurich, I had the opportunity to meet Moritz Niemüller, an independent curator who at the time had finished curating Foto España. And he, somebody during a party, he put me on the phone with him, and he said, well, you're crazy enough to want to do it. I will help you do it. So I actually moved back to Dublin in 2009, and there I found PhotoIreland as an organization aiming to stimulate a dialogue around photography and to promote local artists. So that was kind of like the first legal action, when PhotoIreland started. And so Ángel Luis González Fernández became the founder and director of PhotoIreland. So now it was the labor was around gaining the support of different organizations. I had to skip the Arts Council and go directly to the minister to get the support, but I managed to do it. I got lots of different medium-sized organizations to supporting it. And then it's important to understand the context of photography in Ireland in 2009. We had Supermassive Black Hole, a magazine funded by Barry W. Hughes. This is something is happening in photography in Ireland, that is bursting from that sort of monopoly. We have Blow Photo magazine starting, and there is an excitement on perhaps with the support of the internet. And I don't know if Ryanair was already there, but certainly the sense of being European and traveling around Europe made a bigger connection, and brought many ideas into Ireland. So there is a big change around that time. And in 2010, finally, we found PhotoIreland Festival with the first issue celebrating photography. So this is so we have a TV advert. We managed to find out that the national broadcaster supports you in this way. So we had a TV advert, which was amazing. We had the website, of course. We had to think about, suddenly we had to think about branding, we had to think about how to share information, things that we didn't know. I mean, I'm just a graduate from photography. Okay, I have a background in design and a bit of journalism, but how do you progress this monster? No, we had around 39 venues that first year, and we launched the festival in the Meeting House Square. Actually, that's the Castro. There you go. And we produce a leaflet with information on the festival. Our volunteers, we call them flâneurs. And Moritz Nimurer, of course, he was the flaneur #1, as he was our supporter. We have great exhibitions like Peter Kennard and Kat Phillips in the National Photographic Archive, already dealing with art transport and installation, producing materials specifically for exhibitions, lots of talks and so on, outdoor events, and I suppose also one of the most important things, the idea of intergenerational connection. So in this case, it's Richard Moss meeting photographer David Farrell, some night projections in the area of photography, Austrian photography coming to Dublin. No portfolio reviews, but just some sort of like walk through portfolios instead of the portfolio reviews, allowing people to get to know the work of local artists. And as I was mentioning, the brand, trying to place the brand everywhere, wherever we could, in t-shirts, in banners, in tote bags, just trying to get it out there. Somebody invited us to put it on a bus. No worries, we put it in the bus. And somebody was even using their kids, to propagate the news. We have it in the tram stops, and we received an award for that year, David Manley Arts Entrepreneur Award, which was great. And every year we decided to stop and kind of rethink about what is happening and what are we doing, because we copied the model of the festival somehow from what we have seen abroad. So it's super important to figure out and to be consequent with your idea. So we thought we needed obviously this was a celebration of photography. We need to make a proper curation of the festival. We need to make it wider in terms of the international network. We need to focus on the photo book. At the time, the photo book became, or rather the photo book became the photo book. And we worked super hard to bring those photo books to Ireland. We started the festival with the name of, or with the proposal of a collaborative change. And we also got another TV advert. So we progress with the materials, and again, around 47 locations around Dublin. Yeah. Now we have a catalog. Sorry, there.
Ángel, could I ask you? Could you maybe talk a tiny bit about how the cultural landscape of Ireland has influenced the format of PhotoIreland, like over the years? Because obviously, like every cultural landscape is different. What would you say? What's the unique Irish traits that ultimately gave made PhotoIreland like the unique festival that it is now?
Well, I mean, I suppose we are one of the most important things is that I suppose we really remain critical of what we do, and like that's at the core of our activities, But that may seem like a simple thing. It has allowed us to get rid of certain ways of working and actually develop some new ones, and some new ones that are very specific of us. And perhaps I will get to them. But things like the Critical Academy, or for example, we at some point in the progression, we stopped doing the portfolio reviews, and we devised this thing that we call the critical practice reviews, which were the work in a different way. Instead of having one-on-one sessions, there are 3 professionals meeting 2 photographers, and one of the professionals has to come from a creative industry, from marketing, advertising, and so on, because there is a sense of no nonsense, in the approach of these industries, but also problem-solving approach that perhaps would be a bit different. And also there is this facilitates, for example, there is no power relations in terms of the conversations. And actually, this is a model that we tested and it works really well. The cultural landscape, well, as I was suggesting, there was a very monotonous way of talking about photography, and we tried to change that, and we have been kind of like going through that. Let me continue for a second. I'll tell you a bit more about the landscape. For example, in terms of the exhibitions, we divide this in the main shows are the ones that we curate, but we also like to feature some other shows that we may not curate. Some other galleries have their materials, and then the open program, which we have been trying to motivate all individuals and organizations to host their own exhibitions. And I think that's kind of like our proactive way to involve people in the festival. Okay, like we have done things like the Martin Parr Best Books of the Decade in 2011, kind of looking at that sort of industry of the photo book through the eyes of Martin Parr, looking at what were in his opinion and presenting in a talk, what are the most important books for the last decade. This was in 2011, so from the teens, I suppose. But being able to show, to make an exhibition of books, for the first time, I mean, this is quite I mean, I don't know, quite unusual, I suppose. I've never seen that in Dublin before, and to allow people to actually touch them, and to in some cases, to damage them, but actually that sort of approach or having the access to the material and to the tactility of the book rather than seeing on a screen, it was super important. So I think that was something that was not there before. So there were lots of exhibitions in that particular year. Something very specific about Ireland is that the Irish Museum of Modern Art has received the donation of the David Crone collection. It's a live donation, so as he purchases new work, it will go into the collection. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's also a great opportunity for the Modern Art Museum to expand their very, very poor collection of photographs to now having something substantial around which to create a really decent collection. We did the first book and magazine fair focus on the photo book in Ireland, and this also happened months before the first Dublin Art Book Fair. So we had a celebration. I mean, we had like over 600 books that there was no other way that these books will ever arrive to Ireland, and we had them here in July 2011, and we had lots of talks. We have Marcus Shaden coming to talk, Bruno Sechel as well, taking notes. I mean, to see Bruno Sechel taking notes in our exhibition, for me, it was quite amazing. We were focusing as well on the symposiums and in this case, talking around collaborative change and person-to-person protocols, cooperatives. It's kind of like escaping photography into broader themes and outdoor installations around the city, and the brand, trying to expand the brand around. We engaged with the Irish Museum of Modern Art we proposed them to create one book on photography, because they have this collection called What is Modern Art and Contemporary Art, what is New Media Art, what is Conceptual Art. So, they created one called What is Photography. And our volunteers Claudine got rewarded, from the president, which I thought it was quite great to have, your staff being rewarded, because they definitely deserve it. So those sort of that process of the photo book becoming or the photo book becoming the photo book was super important, and we continue with the push the book in the following years. And there will be another Albert, thankfully, on the television for this year. Okay, there's a full version, but I will spare you the full version. So the website, the around 4750 locations around the city, some exhibitions. But I suppose the important thing of this year was, the beginning of a transition to a more these first years were curated by Maurice Niemöller. The first 3 years. I don't know if you can see that all right. My iPad is going nuts.
All good here.
Okay, cool. So we had the portfolio reviews. We have David Galliard Concresco before he went to Paris Photo to win the first photo book award for the first time in the first edition of that award, which was great. Exhibitions around the city, as always, are key. And one of the photographers engaged with the community around the flats to host some exhibitions. I suppose, I could jump to the 2013 festival, because it was the first time that we kind of turn around. We wanted to drive that sort of little attention that we had on the festival towards us and to look at artist photography. So we created this thing called New Artist Works, and of course there was an advert for that. So this is a series of exhibitions around Ireland, representing 25 artists. This for being the third year, it was quite ambitious, and I think it is the only time that we have done this. Just being in 3 cities in Ireland during July, it's quite mental. Mostly because we don't own a helicopter, and we have to move around by car. Producing the book was, I think, one of the best things that we ever did as well, to promote the works. Thankfully, we got a sponsor as well, and it has been everywhere around the world. And somebody sent us a picture from Japan that they were super happy to receive it. We tried to promote it, through Albert's in Full Magazine and so on. The works that truly represent a moment in Ireland. As I was suggesting, there is a moment in which artist photography is perhaps losing the relation with the historical relation with the influence, probably more British documentary type of influence, and broadening towards a very, very, very complex set of practices that in many cases are hard to define. And that's just the beginning, I think, in those years. So I mean, having the New Artist Works shown in places like Limerick, in the Ormston House, for example, it was a truly unique opportunity, bringing also part of the photo book collections, so we can have reading rooms and bring some of that wealth of publications that we were accumulating, bringing also the PopCap Prize, of contemporary African photography. So this sort of like touring of the works around Ireland, that was amazing. But again, that was quite ambitious. And so these are some of the exhibitions in David Galliard showing the work. We brought Christina de Miedel to Dublin as well, and we show it in a quite an amazing space. And we, of course, we host the portfolio reviews. The whole idea of New Artist Works as well was that it was going to be a project that was going to serve us to promote photographers abroad. So we got a table in unseen, and we show the Irish photobooks to Il Padrino, to Martin Parr, so he could get a sense of what was happening in Ireland. And also, suddenly in 2013, we were offered a space in Temple Bar to host a temporary residency, or to enjoy a temporary residency for showcasing the collection of photobooks that we call the Library Project. I mean, this is quite a unique thing. So suddenly, for 1 month in Dublin City Centre, just beside the famous Temple Bar in tourist center, to the tourist ground zero of Dublin, there is a photobook library. This doesn't make sense, but actually, this was it was such a good space that we did a bit of research, and we proposed the owners to let us basically become tenants, and we did. And suddenly we changed our relationship from with the publishers that were until then mostly donating the books, and now we can actually set up a bookshop, mostly because we had to pay the rent and we had to make some money. So now we have a challenge. How do you run a bookshop, and what software do you use, and everything that you can imagine. And it has been quite a ride, but it's been super interesting because we can use the space for meetings, we can do workshops, we can host all sorts of events. And we certainly were using it like to the max. There was an event almost every week. Things that are calmed down a little bit more these days, but we also brought there, after Unseen, New Irish works to the Duo Gallery to Paris during Paris Photo, and we were able to show some of the works during Paris Photo. So I'm going to stop this, and I want to share with you then sort of like more look at what's PhotoIreland today, to make it a bit more. Okay, you can see that slide that says PhotoIreland. Okay, this is the staff, the company staff today. We are very lucky that we were able to hire somebody for the library project and somebody helping us with scanning, and this is the structure of the projects that make PhotoIreland today. So we run a space called the Library Project, which we have retained that name even though it's not anymore a library. We run a number of cultural events, of course. We run the PhotoIreland Festival, but in November we run this thing called Halftone, which is a print fair, and we cover the space of the Library Project from ceiling to the floor with artworks. We have a residency called How to Flatten a Mountain, and we have the New Irish Works project. And then in terms of publishing, we started the TLP editions that I will mention in a second. We did the Martin Parr, and we have some postcards projects because we are in the tourist center in Dublin, so we wanted to represent Ireland, but also give a chance to Irish artists to represent Ireland themselves in a very different way. In terms of research and education, we have this thing that is called the Critical Academic, which is trying to complement all the education that you are missing when you go to when you leave the BA or the master, to connect with the real world in terms of like business skills, sometimes research skills, writing skills. We have the PhotoIreland collection, which is what we used to call the Library Project, became the PhotoIreland collection, and now is hosted inside the Library Project as a research library space. We have also the PhotoIreland Wiki. So we have a website where we can, anybody that has a practice in Ireland can submit their work, and is listed there as a photographer, as a photographer with an arts practice. We have this thing called the Museum of Contemporary Photography in Ireland and Over Journal, which we'll talk about in a second, and then the European projects or the international projects. So we have spoken about the Library Project. I think if you come to Dublin, I think you should come and have a look. It is quite a nice space, if I may say so myself. It's quite welcoming. You have amazing books, and structurally, this is what it looks like when you are upstairs. You can see the mezzanine with all the books Right now, actually, we have covered all the walls with the shelves, so it's we are maximum capacity. And downstairs is the bookshop area. We use the space upstairs for talks, like in this case with Alan Butler during one of the Critical Academy sessions, or for some other meetings, like here for the parallel platform meetings. Trying to find ways to promote the local artists or artists based in Ireland, through our minimum budgets is always essential. And publishing is not an expensive thing. It's just it's about being wise with your resources. And we made these publications through companies that produce brochures, but we managed to find the right quality so we can do the bare minimum maximum, so they actually look fine, and actually they are really enjoyable. And sometimes we are even surprised about the quality of the color, but they are not Arctic volume paper, and they are not expensive materials. And so producing this collection of the TLP editions has been probably one of the best ideas as well. When it comes to publishing, I think any investment is always quite rewarding. People can find these publications, they can buy them for €6. So it's fairly expensive. We made a box to host the first 43 publications, and in this box you can actually fit 60. So there's plenty of space there left. We spoke about the PhotoIreland Festival. We have so far 12 editions, and the last one in 2022 will be the museum. Well, the next one will be the museum. Again, I will explain about more about that. And we have seen some of the outdoor installations that we have done. This year, we ran the festival. My colleague, actually, Julia De Sova was curating the festival, and the title was "By the Hand That Fits You," and there's a lot of online components that you can enjoy actually through the website. They are recorded as well, so I recommend you to go and have a look. In terms of our international collaboration, it has been crucial for us to be able to grow, in an adequate manner when perhaps funds at a national level were not available. So we are the Irish member of the European platform called Parallel, but also which involves organizations like Robert Capa, Contemporary Photography Center, and many others, like one of the oldest museums, I think is the oldest, the Finnish Museum of Photography. So suddenly this little organization from the corner of Europe is playing with all these other organizations. We're also the only Irish organization member of Futures, which hosts most of the main events around Unseen, and we're super proud to be part of these partnerships, because they really help us bring our voice and our artists, beyond our I suppose borders, but also like we import a lot of the work that we see abroad, which is great. So MOCPOI, in short, for the Museum of Contemporary of Ireland. So we are not nuts, we're not starting a museum, but this is actually a research project, a public-facing research project towards a museum for visual culture and critical thinking. In 2019, we started to use this space, this building that it was used by the revenue office in Ireland. But now the ground floor has been dedicated to conference space. So it's quite large. It's like 2,000 square meters. And we were looking for spaces in Dublin, and so somebody said, like, okay, we don't have this small space that you were asking for, but we had this other one, and it was absolutely amazing to see this space. And we thought to start to engage with the public towards the idea of what will a museum of photography would look like today if it was going to start, because obviously you don't want to replicate what a museum was in the 1900s, but what is a museum today, and what kind of works will it show, what kind of technology will it use to show, and so on. So this was maybe a tame version of where we're heading. but we had 4 or 5 exhibitions, like the Tokyo photography competition coming from New York. We invited curator Hester Kaiser to showcase the work of an artist whose name escapes me right now because it's Friday evening. We have the work of New Year's Works in the 3rd edition. So this is the 3rd edition of New Year's Works that happens every 3 years. And it was great to be able to present it in this way. It's a really nice open space. You can see that it has the sense of a conference space. But we also have the exhibition from the parallel platform partnerships, and we have, as always, a space dedicated to the books. This is just a fraction of all the books that were on display. So all in all, it's quite amazing space. And throughout the venue, we had a number of places where we were asking the visitors, about the museum. How does a museum support photography? What should a museum today will look like, and so on. So we have gathered all that information. So while people can enjoy the exhibitions, they were contributing to this conversation around the future museum that we will build, but not under that denomination. So this is some of the New Year's Works artists. I think there's 2 missing, because there were 10 artists selected for this. I must say that it's not that we, Julia and myself, select the artists, but actually there's always an international panel that we invite that involves local and international professionals. So it's trying to be as impartial as possible. This year we also invited the Kids Council from the ARC. The ARC is a kids theater in Dublin that have this wonderful idea that they cannot program top down to the kids. The kids have to get involved. So they started the Kids Council, and these kids are super smart, super responsible, and they contribute to the programming in the ARC. So we thought, okay, let's bring them to the museum. Let's have a conversation about the museum, because they will be their visitors most likely. And then finally, we talk about Overjournal, which is a project that started really in 2010, but it has been sort of dormant. And at the time, it was called Image-Based Magazine. But I think it's good that we spend these 10 years waiting for it, because it has become a bit more specialized, and it's not a portfolio magazine, but it's actually a journal, in the sense that we actually have papers that we somehow articulate, so we can present them for we can kind of like I wouldn't say that we shorten them, but we try to make them so everybody can enjoy them, basically. And there's papers, there are articles, and there's lots of features of different artists. So we launched it in 2010 with the help of the pandemic. We have this sort of post that allow us, and I suppose that the lack of physical exhibitions allow us to have the time to finally put all this energy into the publication. And we have a lot of the main writers, I suppose, of photography today, but also we initiated a process in which we will have contributors from all continents by default. So we have been working with individuals from all over the world, and we're very keen to keep that model running. So there is always quite a global presentation. So it's not going to be about Europe. It's going to be about all the different regions, and focusing on that. And in the back cover, there is always, I think I have it here also behind me, there's always a tool for political action. So this is the Guerrilla Girls, and they use this mask in some of the demonstrations. So you could cut it out, or you can actually just put it over your face. And that became a feature of the journal. So issue 2 was launched a couple of weeks ago. It features the work in the cover of Jean Curran, that is we think that we're super lucky to have it in the cover and to have it inside, of course. And the back cover features the work of Rafa Milag with the demonstrations that were documented and shared through the archive of public protest. So that look at the cover, the obsession with the cover for us is also an obsession with the back cover, because in the back cover we'll always feature photography in action, I suppose, in terms of like political action. The issue number 2 is a bit meatier than issue number 1. It also has all that delicacy of fancy papers like the Arctic volume and others. So yeah, I think it is quite we're actually waiting for it to come because we have it is in the printers, and it will come by the end of 23rd of August, I think it is. But yeah, it's quite a jump in terms of the quality of the material. The content is just as good, and I really recommend it for everybody. Anyway, and there's always a call for papers open, call for articles, and more importantly, perhaps for the audience today, a call for works. So we are always looking for new work. This is I mean, sometimes people ask, what is the deadline? I mean, I think online we say like there is no deadline. We have for issue we were planning to have 2 issues a year, but we have decided that actually it's more important to have one issue like the one that we have done this year, and to continue with the work online throughout the rest of the year. So we have divided the budget in a different way as we thought in the past, and that allow us to have quite a substantial website that we're working on. We have been working on for the last 8 months, but hopefully will come out by the end of August, and you can start to see some content. And then to have one really good publication that is almost like a book in the end. It's not really a magazine. It's 256 pages, and at that level of quality, it's quite a substantial amount of work. So yeah, I hope that you can get your hands on one of these copies very soon. I think that's me.
Try.
Sorry?
I will definitely try.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I will send you a copy, but for the general public, I don't have their address, so they're gonna have to buy one. Yeah, I mean, so I think in short, you get a sense of the that sort of progression. I think it's important to understand that I am still the graduate from 2007, who decided that things needed to change in order for me to have a practice. Okay, so hopefully maybe one day I can start my own practice, but at least I had to do that so also my peers could enjoy their own practice. And in some cases that means making some sacrifices, but I think I was never expecting this sort of progression, and I think it has been quite an interesting learning curve, to get here. I don't know. I think it's yeah, it's quite an interesting process, to get to these kind of things.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating to see how you manage to set up what I would say really now is one of the leading photography festivals in Europe, to start this from scratch just within a little bit over than a decade. What would you say? What were the key ingredients to that recipe? I know that you have a background, for example, in graphic design, and I must say, I mean, also going through the presentation already confirms that I think in general, like your presentation really has that certain something. Everything just, from day one, I think you start to have an incredibly efficient way of communicating your agenda. Would you say that played a role? Like your background?
Did I say what?
Yeah.
Oh, the design. Yeah. Okay. I have to say, one of the most important things that we have done is never to fear to make a massive mistake in public, because sometimes you have to take some risks. And I mean, one example was I show you the little flyer for the first year. It was designed. It kind of like, you go into these processes where you need to resolve certain situations, and in that year, with the information what we share in the leaflet, it was the starting hours or the starting times of certain projects, as you would do, but then again, what if I arrived someday to the festival? What is happening today in the festival? I don't know. I just know what's happening today. What is open? I don't know. So to devise ways in which the information is provided better, we learn that very quickly. The second year when we did a catalog, it was designed by a pro bono, by a design friend, and the catalog was really, really bad in terms of like its usability. It was really hard. The map was horrible. It was really hard to know what was going on, even for us, to tell to the public. So there is all these mistakes that you make, and then you realize, okay, I mean, if you kind of stop and think about those mistakes, yeah, that can help a lot the process. We have now a tool in the website that is called What's On Today. It's a calendar you can check right now, as you would do, when you're walking down the street with your phone. You want to know what's open now. I think that's the kind of level of usability that we were looking for. And you know what? Actually, I don't find this in many not just photography festivals, but in many festivals in general. There is always a list of stuff that is happening, but what is happening right now and where and what's opening, that's a bit trickier. But that's maybe shows a desire, to improve over time. And I mean, my design background only kind of started to kick on when I had the possibility of actually sit down and work through the process, like in year 3 or 4, when I started to design the materials myself. But yeah, I don't know. I think you mentioned, you were asking about you're asking something else, and I don't know what I said.
Yeah, well, just to really quickly address the attendees here. Hi guys, if you've got any questions, you can please put them into the chat box, and then I'm going to forward them to Ángel. Yeah, in general, I mean, our school started just a few years ago, and it's really interesting to see what type of dynamics, if you're hitting the right market, what type of dynamics things can actually take on. Yeah, and it's, looking back, it's always, interesting to see, what were like the key elements that you've done right, and which ones obviously like the ones that might actually need some form of improvement. I've got another question for you. You briefly touched on that at the beginning, the traditional separation between documentary photography and fine art, which I really think over the last few years, and you already mentioned a photographer like Richard Moss, let's say, this boundary seems to become very, very fluid, I think. So, like in a classical academic context, really often the documentary guys or the photographers and the fine art photographers, they were sometimes even housed in completely different buildings. Sometimes they never even met, because in a traditional way of thinking, these are two completely different genres. How did you manage to bring those two together?
I mean, I think it's actually one of the most important things in this, in photography, is the fact that it's so complex, and that is and that is so broad. So we never wanted to dictate a type of photography. We never wanted to say, this is what photography is, and this is what you should enjoy, because that's what we had before, and that's what I did not want to replicate. My view was that if I'm able to show that sort of richness, then it's easier to for people to choose what exactly do they want, and to actually to be aware of that sort of complexity, because I don't think things are anymore binary, as in many at many levels, but certainly around this type of labels of different types of photography. I mean, I think some practices are becoming very complex, or are going beyond photography. We have some installations this year in the festival that they had very little traditional paper photographs in them, but some of the practices were coming from a photography background, and they were developing into something else that needed to escape that sort of two-dimensionality. So we have absolutely no fear on going whenever is needed, as long as it helps to showcase the practice of a challenging or the challenging practice of an artist. I think that is an important place to go, and rather than showing more of the same and kind of like being trapped on things that I like. I think it's important to open conversations and to go beyond, where the contemporary is as well. You can see organizations like, I suppose, a good example is things like the screen walks with the Photographers Gallery and the Fotomuseum Winter Tour. It's nice to see that there is a desire to get to talk about complex things that in some cases may be towards in the nerd spheres, or in the in complex spheres, or in hard to grasp I don't know, areas of arts practice, but that's what's happening today. It's not anymore about photographs, it's about images, and it's great to be able to enjoy a finer print made by hand in a dark room as much as it is to enjoy an image made by AI, and to understand the differences in these two very complex ways of production. I think that's where photography is at, and I think that's where you really enrich the audience.
Yeah,
that's sort of approach.
Yeah, and who curates all those exhibitions? Is it mainly you? Is it the entire team?
So I've only curated very few editions of the festival. We have the first years we have Moritz Neumuller curating the first 3 years after the first one that was not curated, and then I think I curated two or three. But we always work either with a guest curator or in this case this year, my colleague for the first time she curated the festival. So we also want to make sure that there is no that there is a diversity in the way the work or the program is developed. So it's not always the same person, and also that the program is not. Even though it may be created under a specific subject or an interest, that it has a number of elements that may allow other individuals to bring in their own ideas. That is key as well. So there is no, again, a curatorial monopoly in terms of like the representation of certain types of practices or ideas, talking about the same all the time. No, this is about also to talk about what is current, what is relevant. For example, 2019, we spoke about abortion because it was relevant to Ireland. But so it happened that we had the work of Laia Abril on abortion, which is the first chapter of her long-term project, and we were lucky that we had her in Dublin as well. So I think you sometimes you plan. You develop these projects for a long time, and sometimes you kind of have to react quickly to the circumstances, the socio-historical circumstances.
I see. Yeah. Good. If anyone else here has any final questions, then now's the time to ask them. I really hope we can meet in person at one point, Ángel. I know from our school, we've plans for next year to, as a team, actually to go to different photography festivals, and could be a really great opportunity, I think, to meet in person. And if you ever have plans coming to London, for example, we are also part of the Free Range Photography Festival here, which is all housed in the Truman Brewery, where our students show their work. Would be a great opportunity for you to come over, and I make sure
Cool.
that you're going to
So
get
you,
nice Guinness here.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love to be able to travel to London for sure, and I love to be able to have you here in Dublin. I to maybe to make it to speak a bit about the next year. So we were talking earlier about the museum. Can you see that screen with the Museum of Contemporary Photography? Okay, cool. So next year we have a project that I think it will be interesting for. I mean, if you're coming to Dublin, you're going to be able to see the whole festival is going to be around the history of and practice of photography in Ireland. So as we did in 2013 with this New Age Works, so now we have a project that is slightly more complex. We have put an open call in which a number of people can get involved, from artists, cultural professionals, and critics. So we're trying to make always our process as open as possible and participative, and because like as often happens, you will always find out something through this openness, and we already have received a lot of emails and with great information on the history and different and other things. But I think anyway, if you are able to come, I think it will be fantastic, and you will enjoy in that space quite a considerable amount of work from Ireland. So you will be able to see really that sort of shift that I was commenting earlier on, from the sort of British documentary approach to something a bit expanding, towards something more complex. My dog has the bullshit alert on, and it's true. I mean, I think it's going to be a really good exhibition. Just cool down.
Yeah. Oh, hope the dog is all right. Good. Thank you so much. Really, it was a great pleasure having you on board here.